Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former Utah GOP Chair Derek Brown and former Congressman Ben McAdams. Gentlemen, great to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and get right into this race for U.S. Senate. The latest poll coming out during the week from the Utah Debate Commission giving Senator Lee an 11-point lead in this race. Ben, let's start with you. On this very show about a year ago, you started laying the groundwork for this idea of Democrats getting behind independent challenger Evan McMullin. How do you assess the race as we speak in this moment?
You know, what we can see from all of the polling, and there have been polling all over the map on this, but all of them reaffirm that this is a close race. And really, I think that's pretty exciting. For the first time in decades, Utah has a statewide general election that's a close race. Voters are tuning in, voters are excited, and it's, I think, exciting for democracy to see so much excitement for this race and people really weighing their vote heavily. And, you know, as you mentioned, Glenn, I'm supporting Evan McMullin. I think he's an honorable, respectable person, and I'm happy to see so much engagement around the campaign.
All right, we're going to dig into more of the engagement centered around this race in just a minute. But Derek, let's bring you in. How do you assess the race given this latest poll?
Well, I view the polls a little different. I mean, these are double-digit margins. Senator Lee, you know, by virtually every poll that I'm seeing that's credible, it ranges from like the Debate Commission poll of 11% up to 18 or 19%. And so as you look at the different polls, I mean, I think they're at that point of the campaign where it's sort of a battle of the polls. And every time there's one that's kind of slightly showing it slightly closer, McMullin will say, hey, things are close. And then ironically, then Senator Lee will then use that poll in an effort to raise funds. And so I think that also kind of backfires a little bit. But I think when push comes to shove, you know, the reality is it's a double-digit lead for Senator Lee at this point in time. And so, you know, when the election day comes and goes, I think we're going to probably see something in that range in terms of the margin.
Let's talk more about those margins, because you're right, Ben. You brought up how these polls are all over the place. Evan McMullin's last internal polling that was released showed him up by 1. The internal polls I've seen from Senator Lee, 18 plus. Some of the more independent polling from like the Hinckley Institute and then the Debate Commission, anywhere from 4 to 11. What do we make of this wild range of numbers?
Well, I think you need to look at the methodology of the poll and what really went into it. So this same Debate Commission poll 4 years ago when I was running against Mia Love showed me losing by 10 percentage points. I ended up winning that race. 2 years later, I was running against Burgess Owens, and the same poll showed me ahead of Burgess Owens by 10 percentage points. My own internal polling showed it a much closer race than the Debate Commission poll. So I don't put a lot of stock in the like slicing and with a scalpel the numbers on this poll. There's some, you know, the methodology in the poll isn't really solid, but what I would take away is just from the 10,000 foot level, this is a very close race and anything could happen at this point.
All right, I'd like to hear from both of you on just how much money this race is bringing in. This is very unusual for a statewide race here in the state of Utah to get so much attention and so much money. And also, what do you make of the advertising we're seeing blasted all over the market? Derek, let's start with you.
Well, I think that you're going to see a lot more money. I mean, this is a national race in the sense that, and that I think in large degree it's the fact that Senator Lee is a national figure, and so I think that's part of it. But I think when push comes to shove, again, you're going to see when folks go into the proverbial ballot box, and particularly Republicans, I think you're going to see the range is going to go dramatically apart. I mean, Senator Lee won 6 years ago by over 40%. And that's not going to happen this time, but I think the reality is, at least for right now, McMullin hasn't really had the tough questions asked. And so after things like the Inflation Reduction Act, his response is, you know, would you support it or wouldn't you? And he says, well, you know, I like this piece, I like that piece. And that's nice and all, but when you're an elected official, you got to go one way or the other. And I think having to make those hard decisions and be pushed on where you stand on specific issues, I don't think we've seen that yet. I think we're going to see that. And when we see that, I think the polls will reflect that even more.
Ben, address that.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Evan for many years now. He's an upstanding, honorable person. What I love about his candidacy is he's running as an independent, not a Democrat, not a Republican, and he's not willing to take orders from party bosses. So he's gonna call it as he sees it. As Derek says, there's elements of the legislation he likes and some elements he doesn't. And he's free to go and express that opinion without being tied to special interests. You know, you showed some of the fundraising in this race. Evan has raised a significant amount, enough to be a credible candidate. He is not taking PAC dollars. So he has turned away special interest dollars, unlike Mike Lee, who has taken over $4 million from special interests. Evan is going to be an independent, not only independent from the Democratic Party and Republican Party, but he is free of an independent of the special interests that control too much of Congress. And for me, it's troubling to see a senator like Mike Lee, who has taken such immense amounts from special interests who really want to control legislation in Washington, and that's at the heart of what's broken in D.C.
Can I add something, Glenn? I think that cuts both ways as well, because if he's basically saying I'm not going to caucus with Republicans or with Democrats, I mean, how is that going to impact his committee positions? How will he have any ability to influence what goes on in Utah? And I think that's the real question people need to ask is where is that influence if you're not caucusing with either party in a two-party system where you really need to choose one side or the other?
We hear that talked about a lot, but let me just say quickly, Glenn, actually Evan, I think, is in a position like Mitt Romney to be one of Utah's most powerful senators. Nobody, I would say at this point, no senator drafts a bill and says, what are we going to do to get Mike Lee's vote? Mike Lee, we know, votes no on everything. Mike Lee has passed 6 bills in his 12 years in office. He hasn't been the most effective senator. Evan, because he is not going to caucus with Republicans or Democrats, I guarantee that anybody who's proposing legislation they want to see pass, they're going to be asking, whether Republican or Democrat, they're going to be asking what can they do to get Evan McMullen's support.
All right, Derek, real quick, address what Ben said about Senator Lee's effectiveness in the Senate before we move on to something else.
No, I think a lot of the effectiveness isn't always standing out in front and taking credit for things that have been done. I think that's one of the things people haven't necessarily seen. I had a bird's eye view of this. There's a lot of effective things you can do behind the scenes working. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that Senator Lee has done that doesn't always get talked about. And so, I mean, the reality is, yes, you do know where he stands for. And I think the fact that you know where he stands is likely to help him more than hurt him, because the truth is he has taken difficult stances, and when the going gets tough, you know, I've seen him. He kind of stays where he is, and he gets accused of all sorts of things for staying there and standing his ground. And you know, the reality is, you know, it's difficult. It's a lot easier to be squishy.
I would just say, just quickly, it's really easy to vote no on everything. In his 12 years in the Senate, Mike Lee has passed 6 bills. Half of those bills were naming post offices and government buildings. So, you know, it doesn't take a lot of hard work to just vote no on autopilot. We need a senator who can go there, who can roll up their sleeves and constructively work to build a coalition, to build consensus, working with Republicans and Democrats. And that's what it's going to take to fix what's broken in Washington.
All right, I want to get on to one other topic real quick. Former Vice President Mike Pence was in the state of Utah speaking at U of U. Sounded an awful lot like a campaign speech. I was there listening to it. Is he a potential candidate for president in 2024, Derek?
I definitely think he is. I mean, he's at that place in campaigns where he's trying to figure out, do I make it official? What do the numbers look like? Do I have the support to overcome sort of the DeSantis factor? Can I overcome the Trump factor? And not knowing what Trump is doing and knowing what DeSantis is doing, it puts him in this awkward sort of middle ground where he's trying to figure out, what do I do? And so I think he has a lot of people, people that I know who are kind of part of that inner circle that I think are encouraging him to do it. But I think if he doesn't think he's going to be successful, you probably won't see him doing it. So I think he's probably looking very closely at DeSantis and Trump and trying to figure out what is the right move. So clearly, I mean, his response the other day was one like a candidate who's looking at it. Yeah, what did he say? I'll keep you posted. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of someone who is absolutely thinking about it, but doesn't want to say anything publicly.
Right. Exactly. Reading between the lines there. Ben, do you see him jumping in the race for the White House?
I mean, he's certainly clearly looking at it. One thing I will say is, you know, I don't agree with Mike Pence on everything. I've met him on numerous occasions. I will say that regardless of the issues, he's an honorable person. He's somebody who I think is policy and ideas focused. And it's a sad state of, I think it's a sad commentary on the state of our politics that ideas and somebody who's honorable and idea-driven really probably doesn't have much of a chance in a Republican primary today, where it's dominated by people like Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. And I think that's to the disservice of this country. But let me just say how great it was to have him in the state. I'm so excited to see what UVU is doing with the Herbert Center and bringing these discussions to students and really to the people of Utah.
All right. God, we ran out of time. I really wanted to get into that dynamic of a Pence-Trump primary, but unfortunately, we don't have time to go there.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, gentlemen, really appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.